Hello, welcome to another Q&A session from the Reaper blog. Before we get started, I want to thank you all for watching, for commenting, for sharing the videos. It really means a lot to me. And special shout out to my top patrons, Mark, Gerald, Marco, John Mark, Igor, Luca, Ryan, Matt, John, Brian, David, and Glenn. Their monthly support through Patreon really helps. So I'm getting through the edit of this video and I realized that I forgot to talk about some of the benefits of being a patron. You also get access to the exclusive patrons only patron show, which has news, behind the scenes information, quick plugin or hardware reviews, like new gear that I buy, interesting links of the week, which could be what I'm listening to each week or some of the videos that I found entertaining or interesting. You also get access to some patrons-only sample libraries, and when I get a video done early, that goes out to patrons first as well. So if that sounds interesting, we'd love to have you as a patron and get some of these exclusive benefits. It'd be really awesome to have 100 patrons, and we're actually very close to that. So if you want to sign up at patreon.com/thereaperblog, sign up for anywhere from $2 to $10 a month. That'd be amazing. First question comes from Vincent. Can anyone explain the difference between consolidated files and stem files? So the main difference here is that the level within the DAW that they're exported. So a consolidated file is usually the item level. So you get all of the media items on a single track, all of its edits, crossfades, and any silent that's there. So it goes from the start of the project to the end of either to the end of the project or the end of the items on that track. And when it's exported, there's no effects on it. With stem files, it's everything you hear from a particular track. So if there are effects on the track, if there's volume and things like that, that gets exported with the stem format, and that's usually a stereo file as well. So if it's a mono file and you export as a consolidated file, you export and get a mono file without any effects, but it has all of the edits on there, and someone can bring that into another DAW and it plays back exactly as it was. Now, stem files are usually more for remixing and things like that. So you export what you hear and it commits all those effects to a stereo file, and someone else can go in there, take that and make a remix from it. Thanks for the question, Vincent. Next question comes from Matthew. How would you use Reaper as a live performance session? It's actually a really big question. There's so many aspects that this could be. I kind of need more information to really answer it specifically for you. But this could be if you are a keyboard player, you use Reaper to host your virtual instruments, and you could program in the patch changes. So at different parts of the song, it automatically changes. You don't have to press any buttons on the keyboard other than the keys themselves. No channel changes or anything like that. That can all be kind of automated through Reaper. If you're a guitarist, you can do your virtual effects or muting the guitar. And I had an interview with Vampire Stepdad. He switches from guitars to keyboards, and Reaper automates which tracks are actually active at any given time in the song. So he doesn't need to worry about muting anything. It's all done for him. He just picks up the guitar when it's time to play guitar, and it's quiet when it doesn't need to be heard. And Reaper is also really popular for running backing tracks. So if you've got a live band, or if you're a soloist and you have backing music, this can all be programmed and set up through Reaper. I actually have a bunch of interviews and a playlist of those interviews and some other community videos related to live sound with Reaper. So I'm just going to refer you to that link. There will be a link down below to go to that playlist. Next question comes from Samuel T. Over the past few months, I've been learning about audio engineering and mixing, but I've not yet mixed anything in depth. I started to mix the Reaper Mix Contest, but I realized after a while that I was just playing with the knobs and faders until it sounded right. I didn't have a goal in mind, and as a beginner to audio engineering, how should I approach getting into mixing and mastering so that I actually know what I'm looking for? I assume reference tracks are a big part, but are there other things to consider? Yeah, reference tracks are a big part of it, just to kind of get your ears used to music that sounds right coming out of their speakers. Another thing that really helps is calibrating your system before you start the mix. I've shown this in some of my mixing courses. Basically, you play out some pink noise at a particular level, and using an SPL meter, you make sure that that's playing at a certain level in your room. You adjust your speakers so that is at a certain level. And then every time you mix, you use that same standard. and that is going to really help train your ears for what sounds right, what's a good level, and all those sorts of things. My general approach to starting a mix is drums, and then bass, and then guitars, adding in the keyboards and any other instruments like percussion, and then finally vocals last. Then I do any sort of special effects like reverb and things like that, and then finally automation. So the whole thing only takes me a couple hours. Probably majority of the mix can be done in the first hour, and after that it's just kind of massaging things and making sure that all the fine details are correct and the best that I can do. The main way you get better at mixing or anything is just putting the time in. So if you've only mixed this one song, you can only ever get good at mixing that one song. Mixing takes a long time to learn. You're not going to be good at it the first, 100 mixes you do, but it gets easier with time and it becomes really natural, and you don't have to second guess yourself so much as time goes on. So just mix a lot more songs, record a lot, mix all that stuff, get your friends over and record and mix their stuff. And you can find tons of links to multitracks online where you can download high quality stuff, mix it. Nail the Mix subscription program is really great for getting quality stuff that you can learn how to mix and learn from the original engineers how they mixed it. Great question. Thank you so much for asking that. Next question comes from Vinny D. Having trouble finding free quality samples on the internet. Do you have a link or two I could use? I have an Akai MIDI keyboard that has nothing to do. The first thing that comes to mind is the sample radar section of the Music Radar website. Right now they have like 65,000 samples available. It's all free, and it's not one download, it's multiple downloads. But there's a lot of good stuff that's from these premium sample packs, just kind of like collections that go along with the, I think it's the Music Tech magazine. And so all that free stuff is available on the website as well. Another one that I've seen talked about recently, but I've never used myself, is a free pack of drum machine samples from reverb.com. And there's going to be a link to both of those websites down below. I'd also encourage you to try out Loop Cloud from Loopmasters. It's a virtual instrument, but it's also a sample library store and database, and you can organize your own samples with it or browse. It's really easy to search and find good sounding things and try them out in your projects. I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but I did really like it in the times that I have spent with it. Last question comes from Tom M. Any thoughts on industrial vocal effects chains like Ministry's Burning Inside or Skinny Puppy's Assimilate? Thanks in advance. Thanks for the question, Tom. With these sorts of industrial sounds, really anything goes. Distortion, delays with lots of feedback but very short delay times can be really interesting. Flangers, phasers, using things in the wrong way can be really interesting. With all that said, I did try it out in Reaper and had horrible luck trying to get something that sounded similar to those songs. So I don't know if it's just not having the correct medium, like, not recording onto an ADAT through a Mackie mixer or whatever, like, kind of cheaper gear that they had. I always assumed that they had kind of cheap gear because, like, it's like punk rock, but with keyboards. So I always assume that they have cheap or broken gear. This is 80s and 90s, so there's PCM 42 and lots of early digital effects. You might actually have a lot better luck going with cheap or really old guitar pedals. Some of this like 80s, 90s, 2000s era guitar pedals, especially like the digital stuff, like the Zoom 505 or something like that, you can find these used for $25, and they have some really interesting effects. And if you're not going for a hi-fi sound, I think you can get a lot of mileage out of these. I'm really tempted to buy some old pedals and see what I can do with them. See if a $29 pedal is better than a $29 plugin these days. So that's it for this Q&A session. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions for another Q&A session, leave them down below. Links to everything I talked about will be down in the description box below. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, support the Reaper blog through Patreon, and visit reaperblog.net for a lot more tutorials.